Hi, welcome back to MadameZ and Friendz podcast. I'm MadameZ, and I have a special guest here that I want to introduce you. But before I do that, I want to say thank you to Purple Lava Coffee for sponsoring my podcast. So today, I have Mr. Dorian Weng. Would you please tell everyone what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a mechanic and assistant manager at Grease Monkey.
Okay, so we're going to dive into what it takes to become a mechanic. I know that it's not something that's easy, it is a hard job, but I am dying to hear all about it, and so are my viewers. Talk to me. First of all, what made you get into that field?
Well, I've had a passion for cars ever since I was like yay big. My mom will tell you, she like one of my earliest words was Lexus, Toyota. Like I've always liked cars.
Wow.
I had a gajillion Hot Wheels cars as a kid, and I've also always had a propensity to, take stuff apart, put it back together. Like my mom could leave me in the room with anything that had screws or, any potential of it getting taken apart because I would just undo it, put it back together. As a kid, oftentimes ruining it. but yeah, no, I've always loved cars. It's my passion.
Okay, did you go to school? How did you
Um,
know that cars was something that you could actually work on?
so it started actually with my cousin's husband at the time. He was like the only other car enthusiast in my family.
Mhm.
And you know, before he came around, it was really just I like the way cars look. I like video games. I watch car shows and car YouTube and stuff like that. And then as I hung around him more, I got to actually get my hands dirty, start working on cars for real because he always had a project to do. And then um, once I learned eventually how easy, ultimately easy for me it was, that was when I realized like, okay, I think I want to do this for, as like a career. As far as going to school for it, I didn't go to school initially for that. No, I took a gap year out of high school because I wanted to see what I wanted to do with my life first. I wanted to, take a break from schooling. I was feeling very burnt out by the time I graduated high school. And I was just picking up odd jobs, a little side work here, little like just a little minimum wage job there, stuff like that. Um, and then finally, I had an opportunity to work at a dealership, and they were gonna pay for my certifications. So that was like part of their whole like hiree program and everything. So I jumped on, and I got certified in suspension, brakes, and oh man, it's been so long now. I believe it was suspension, brakes, and internal engine components.
Wow. Okay. How long was the training?
So I would probably say overall, it probably took about a year for everything. It was pretty short term, mainly because I had a lot of on the job learning as
Hmm.
well. Essentially, the way the certification program worked is or works is essentially you schedule the test and then you just go and take it, and they give you a study guide, and then you just go by that, and then you combine that with your real world experience, and then you bring it to the study center, and then you take your test. It's usually they email you a copy of the certification first, and then they get the little piece of paper that says you're allowed to work on rigs now.
So is that something, well, I would say a state certification?
It's ASE. So I'm blanking on what ASE stands for, but and
Automotive something.
yeah,
Okay.
but it's easy to look up,
Hmm.
but yeah, no. So it's like a national like a certification, and the way it works is you can get certified in each individual field in the automotive industry. So like for example, like I said, I got certified with brake suspension and internal engine components. There's certifications for electrical. There are certifications for HVAC. There are certifications for just tires. and stuff like that. So there's like all kinds of certifications for body and paint, so I like that a lot because it allows you to kind of pick your niche, and allows you to market yourself a lot better, as you move up in the industry and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. So, tell me something. And then,
Mhm.
now I'm a school teacher by
Uh-huh.
trade. School teacher, I want to be able to tell anyone who is listening what courses in high school directly relate to auto mechanic.
So this one is one I'm kicking myself for, because I didn't take a lot of interest in it, but it does help a lot. Math. Um, Math is, it comes up very regularly, especially if you're trying to get into some really nitty gritty diagnosis, and stuff like that. Because you got to be able to, like, if you have to know what field tables you're supposed to be looking at. Like, for example, if you're diagnosing a misfire or something like that, you need to know exactly what certain numbers mean. You need to know the equations for, say, air fuel ratio on a specific car. You need to know how to accurately put that together. Now, granted, there's a lot of tools and calculators that can do it yourself, but not every tool is reliable. So sometimes you have to rely on the noggin, and I end up relying on Google when it's something I don't figure out or I can't figure out or I'm just too lazy to figure out, but there are often times where I'm like, if I pay a little closer attention to algebra, I probably wouldn't have as hard a time with this.
Ah, okay.
But math, science as well, specifically chemistry, and physics, I think, because those are always, 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 always at play in every car. Every second your car is running, chemistry and physics is happening. In short, my favorite thing to say is, we drive around in machines that are running on exploding dinosaurs, because essentially the way the four-stroke combustion process in the engine works is, you get your air, your fuel, your spark, and your compression. So um, air, that's the intake. That's so imagine like a piston moving up and down, right? So when your piston moves down, it's pulling in a bunch of air in a vacuum, and then that's the intake, air. And then there's fuel. You have your fuel injectors. It's spraying fuel into that cylinder, and then you have your compression. That's when your piston gets pushed back up, and it's squeezing that air and that fuel into such a teeny tiny space, and then it's making that air and fuel mixture super super dense. And then you have spark, which is your spark plugs, which is what ignites that air fuel mixture, creates an explosion, and pushes that down, which is a technical, basically a fifth stroke exhaust. So, um, so when that happens, it pushes, and that explosion pushes that piston down, all that exhaust comes out, and then that's what we hear. Like that's explosions. So cool. Anyway.
Wow. Okay, you definitely love what you do. I
I do.
like that.
I do.
I love that. Okay, so we talked about training. We talked about courses that are directly related to um, the field of auto mechanic.
Mhm.
Let's talk about benefits,
Mhm.
salary, independent work.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go into business for yourself,
Mhm.
talk about those different things,
Yeah.
please.
So I will say, when it comes to the automotive field, at least in, the current year, 2026, as far as like benefits and salary goes, things aren't always the best. You might get lucky in some areas, like specific shops and stuff like that, or specialist shops, where you can get paid a pretty tidy sum. Um, but as far as, typical stuff like, where I work, or even like, any of the other shops on the same road I work on, um, it's a bit of a it's a bit challenging to find something that's reasonably paying, that accommodates for the current economy,
Mhm.
without being in, upper management, middle management. As far as like the technician level, usually technician pay is shaky at best. So the way, at a lot of shops, the way technician pay works is it's something called flat rate. Essentially, what that means is you get paid a certain amount per hour when there is not work to be had, but you get paid by the job. So, for example, right, a brake job. Um, Book time for a brake job is, well, for this example, we'll say 2 hours on a car. So when you take a brake job ticket as a technician, what happens is you sign up for that ticket, you clock in for that ticket, and then you are going to get paid that 2 hours. Whether or not you complete it in 2 hours doesn't matter. If you complete it in 45 minutes, you still get paid 2 hours. But if something happens or it ends up being particularly challenging, or just say you're new and you're not, the best at it yet, and say it takes you 3 hours, you're still only getting paid 2 hours. Um, and it's a give and a take, because on the one hand, if you're mechanically inclined, if you're good at what you do, and you get a good combination or a good stream of easy jobs that you can just bust through no problem, then you're making money. That's where a lot of mechanics, they'll be like, yeah, it's a good living, because a lot of mechanics who say that are mechanics who, working flat rate, they're able to take those easy. They call it gravy work in the field, because it's so gravy, it's so smooth, you know, easy money, as it were. However, there are some other situations, where it kind of, where flat rate backfires, and that usually ends up being on more complicated jobs. So, and like diagnostics and stuff like that. I'm sure you've been to like a shop where, they're like, all right, so yeah, we'll do it, but you got to pay the diagnostic fee. Big part of that is because they, got to pay that technician to figure out the exact root cause of the problem. And sometimes that takes a few hours, and they're still only getting paid for the 1 hour, because oftentimes diag is 1 hour book time. So, sometimes it's easy. You lift up the car, you see the problem. Oh yeah, it's three things. Like that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. But other times, like you have to, you gotta break out a multimeter. You gotta break out your scan tool. You gotta rely on the four other times you've done this, to figure out exactly what's going on. And that's ultimately what a lot of folks pay for. And that's ultimately where that value goes. Um, that said, though, as far as like where else you can do, how as far as like the potential in the automotive field, um, there is still very high potential, but the difference is you have to find a niche. So broad knowledge is good. And this is something I'm coming to terms with. I'm learning on my own, and I'm realizing I want to, and this is making me want to broaden my own horizons. Um, so when you're getting in the automotive field, if you want big bucks, you want to be able to specialize in a specific thing, and you want to be able to do that very, very well. So, for example, right, welders, um, automotive welding. It's honestly, I would say on the welding totem pole, it's probably like halfway, maybe on the lower end. But in the automotive field, if you are really good at welding, you can get some crazy jobs. And I mean like, buku bucks, like live off of one job for a month type of deal. Like just from, having being good at welding, and then same with like electrical. There's a lot of mechanics, myself included, which I'm trying to learn, overcome my own setbacks there. But a lot of mechanics are like with electrical, they're like, not gonna touch it, no idea, you know. And the thing is like that by itself is already getting more and more popular because so many newer cars from the last 10 years have so many electronics in them. So there's a lot of cars where it's like, it's running weird, it's on the fritz, enough X, Y, and Z doesn't work. You got 8 lights on your dashboard, and it's just something little, a wire that's crossed, or a fuse, or a relay, and being able to diagnose that, and having the skill for that, having the know-how, about like electronics and stuff like that, and how and wiring and everything, um, that can like that alone is like worth its weight in gold. And that's also something that can like translate into, say, if you wanted to spring off of the automotive industry and getting into a specific field full time. Automotive industry is great for that. I learned a lot about electronics, plumbing, HVAC, all that just from cars, because you kind of have to be all of that, in order to accurately diagnose a problem, because every car is essentially its own little house, if you think about it. All the functions of a house are in a car, just kind of stuffed in there. And you have the bonus of or an added bonus of like big suspension parts and a big old engine that explodes everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
That made, well, for the way you put that made sense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would have just been,
Yeah, and that's what I like to do. Like, sorry to interject there, but that's what I like to do is I like to make things like cars. I want that to be accessible to folks, because I'm the first person to say in a perfect world I wouldn't have a job, because everybody would know how to at least do basic stuff with their car, and that's where I get most of my fulfillment at my job. Could I, be a flat rate mechanic somewhere and I'm just a taciturn guy who speaks at you and grunts and just tells the service advisor to recommend stuff? Sure. But I want people to know what's going on with their car. I want people to, know what they're spending their money on, and, you know, be their own reliable person, have their own little mental mechanic, and, because it's not a course, unfortunately, that's taught in schools anymore. When I was coming up, when I was growing up, like, it was just getting phased out, and I lament that all the time, because I'm like, man, I wanted to have the cool high school, automotive technician course. That's the course I wanted. That's the elective I wanted, and I couldn't get it. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's like a lot. There's a lot to do, and a lot of areas you can grow, in the automotive field, and you can use a lot of knowledge that you gain from working on a car, and apply it to everything else. And it works so well in emergencies too. Think about like a flat tire, right? You get stuck on the side of the road. Oh man, I got a flat tire. How many folks would just call AAA, and you're waiting on the side of the road for 2 hours? Right. Right. And that's okay. I don't expect, no one expects everybody to be able to, change a flat tire, but at the same time, like, that knowledge can help you.
right.
You
Yeah.
know.
I wouldn't be sitting there stuck,
Right. Yeah, at least get yourself
especially
on
in
the
the
right
middle of
way.
the night or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like, oh,
And like, and I hate to say it like this, but for a lot of ladies, who are out there, a lot of, since it's a male dominated field, a lot of ladies are, targeted and taken advantage of, which is, in my opinion, abhorrent, ridiculous. I work with two ladies, at my shop, one of which is my boss and one of which is my colleague. And I've been doing this for almost 11, 12 years as a job, as a career. And my boss has only been doing it for 3, and she teaches me stuff. And my constituent she's been doing it for 5 years, and she still teaches me stuff. I still learn something new every day.
that's good.
Like, I think, like, I think for a lot of folks, gender kind of affects that kind of thing, or affects their viewpoint on it. And I think it's kind of silly. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Are there health benefits?
Uh,
Dental,
yeah,
eye.
it depends on where you work. It depends on the
Okay.
company you work for. Um, where I work, it's okay. It's not spectacular, but it gets the job done.
Okay.
But there are some where it's like, like, you get some rock solid stuff. Usually it's the better paying ones. Usually the pay corresponds with the benefits.
Would that be, excuse me, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're good.
Would that be, say, maybe at a dealership?
Believe it or not
No.
necessarily.
Wow.
One thing I will say about dealerships is the biggest advantage they have in terms of um, like, things to gain with them is they have the marketability, you know, Acura, Honda, Honda certified technician, right? Um, they have that brand recognition. They have guaranteed. Oftentimes they have like guaranteed training and stuff like that. Like me, like I started at a dealership. I started at a GMC dealership, um, and they had a ASE certification program where if you sign up, you get ASE certified for free. And normally you got to pay a few $100 to do that per course, and I got all of mine for free, and it was awesome. But yeah, usually when it comes to like on the entry level, a lot of things like benefits and stuff like that are kind of about the same, and pay as well is honestly about the same as say like a regular shop like Grease Monkey, Express Oil Change, trying to think of it, Take Five. It's all right. It's not great. Usually the bigger benefits come once you get to master mechanic status, master technician status, where you're certified in like 5 to 10 fields or more. And they give you all the big jobs. Like say someone needs a whole engine replaced, they give that to the master tech, stuff like that. And usually those guys are the ones who have like the really good benefits. They have, because it's a whole other position basically. And those are the guys who make like moolah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the ones making the big bucks.
Yeah.
Ah. Okay. I'm gonna stop for a little bit. Let me do a little trivia with you.
Yeah, let's go. I love trivia. Trivia is fun. I'm not always good at it though.
Let's try. What do we have to lose? Okay. A blank or supercharger uses the exhaust to blow in more air into the cylinder. So is that Diablo chip, turbo, or flywheel?
Turbo.
Got that right. Let's try another one. Dang, okay. The 4 strokes in order for a 4-stroke cycle engine are intake, compression, power, exhaust, intake, exhaust, power, compression, exhaust, intake, power, none of the above.
It sounds like none of the above. It's intake, compression, power, exhaust.
So that would be the top one.
Oh, that would be the top one? Okay, I misheard it.
There you go. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Oh, I'm impressed. You know your stuff.
I try.
Okay. So I was thinking while you were talking, I said, my goodness, you said that you were able to transfer all of those skills elsewhere. All right. So for someone starting out in the field, what would you, and saying that that's something that they want to do, what would you suggest to him or her that they should do first? Like the first 3 things that they should do if this is a career that they are interested in.
First thing I recommend you do is 2 things on your own car or a car that you got for like a couple $100, cheap beater, is change your own oil, change your spark plugs. If you can learn how to do those 2 things and you can figure it out, don't watch a YouTube video, maybe Google a guide, but don't watch a video on it. Reason being is because if you can figure that out on your own with a basic guide, then ultimately you can figure out anything. I always say cars are designed to be worked on by people who never graduated high school, because in a lot of ways that's true. It's a lot of very simple things that are working together. So it looks scary, it looks complicated, but if you can open your hood and you can identify the basics, then you can do the vast majority of most work on a car. And everything else you can figure out along the way. The only prerequisite you gotta have is you gotta be okay with being dirty. I came here after work, y'all. My hands were still gross. I washed my hands 4 times. So if you're okay with being dirty sometimes, that's all you need to worry about. And after that, it's just be stubborn. Because there's gonna be a lot of challenges. If you like puzzles, if you like solving puzzles, that is like that, because that's me. I love solving puzzles and I'm stubborn. So like I love getting to the root cause of the problem, finding the problem and then solving it, and then it works. Best feeling ever. So if you're that kind of person, if you love puzzles, try working on a car. Give it a shot. Get a little basic set of tools for like $30-$40 at an auto parts store. and just start messing with stuff. It ultimately, like, you'll figure it out, and if you can put it back together the same way you found it, you're right as rain.
Wow. Okay. Whew, that's impressive. Okay. And I can barely remember. No, I'm not even going to go there. I know I've struggled. Um, what would be something you want to venture into next?
So I have a couple of ideas. I want to get out of my comfort zone, and I want to learn more about electrical. Um, I know I kind of set myself up for a bit more of a challenge when I was younger, by not paying super close attention, in math class and science. But um, at the same token, I do want to, like, number one, I want to learn as much as I can about electronics because it's going to be very pertinent in the field going forward. Just because between everything, every new car having some kind of newfangled gadget, and so many EVs being on the road, so many hybrids being on the road, I want to be able to see one of those and be like, yeah, I can handle that. Instead of just being intimidated. Um, and then there's that, and then there's also I want to get into HVAC. I've actually been looking into like apprenticeship courses as of recent, um, and that's the one thing to remember, audience that's watching. It's never too late to learn something new, never ever, because I might be old to y'all, some of y'all who are watching, some of y'all young ones who are watching. I'm be 28 this year, and I want to go back to college. I never thought I'd say that. Me in high school, never thought I'd say that, but I do, and I want to learn more. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, I also want to get into welding as well, because I've seen some works of art, like mechanical art, that some like welders and fabricators have done, and like holy, like I've seen some crazy stuff, and I want to do that, like and it's and all three of those are things that are transferable, and I think, like going back to what we were talking about, like getting like started in the automotive field. Um, Starting in automotive is a great place to get some like some surface level hands-on experience with stuff like like HVAC, like plumbing, like electronics, um, because um, like I said earlier, going into play in every single car. So you can use some of that, like just a little bit as your springboard,
Right.
because like the basics still apply no matter what field you're in, whether you're doing in a house, in a giant building, or in a car, or even on a motorcycle, um, like it always applies. It's always something that's transferable, So I think it's one of those things where it's like even if you're like you want to get into one of those other like blue collar trades, start at a shop, because most shops are always looking for somebody, and every shop wants somebody who's willing to learn and is willing to do something, like instead of someone who just wants to stand around. So if you have that itch, you want to learn something new, you want to get into something, bless you, um, you know, then try working on cars for, I would say, like a year. Give it a year. See how well you do. Because the other thing too is like the okay with being dirty and stuff like that applies to the other blue collar fields too.
Right. Plus, you can build your own car as well.
Something like that. You
Yeah.
could. You could.
All right. I know that we are running out of time, but first of all, I want to say thank you so much. And I know you're exhausted. You've been at
I'm
work since
happy to
what
help.
time? Yeah.
7:30 this morning.
And it is literally 7:32 right now. Thank you for coming at such short notice.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for all of the information that you have imparted to everyone out there who is interested, and thinking that this may be a career that you are interested in pursuing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers. We really appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again on MadameZ and Friendz podcast. See you soon.